I don't think it's going to work, but oh, let's see if it's working. First, we got to see if it's working. Hit the reload button because it doesn't seem to be streaming. And, one of the reasons I put the videos at the front, besides getting a good thumbnail on YouTube, is so I get a chance to sip some coffee. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash, and this is the WDMA, and you're going to want to stay tuned for this show. Ellen Cousins, my friend in Minnesota, said, and she has a way to do video. Open the card, the video plays. Okay. Now you'd have to combine that with the audio, which you could do. But anyway, Ellen, so we want to keep an eye on Ellen, and we want to get her doing some video mail like we showed you yesterday with the irresistible mail stuff. But anyway, the day before, Ellen sent me a video on YouTube and said, "This sounds like you." Now I don't know in what sense it sounds like me, but I thought it was really funny, and it's 5 minutes, so I didn't want to put you through that, so I edited it to just 1:20 or something, and I could play it at high speed, but we'll let it go. That's not too bad. And so I welcome your comments as always. I always welcome comments. I love comments, and if you get too excited about this, just leave a note or give me a call. Always happy to hear from you. Okay, so here we go. Let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, here we go. This is from Saturday Night Live, and I believe it's actually let's see where we are here. I've actually got the Bloomberg article. I marked it up a little. I should note, and I think everybody should note, this is an opinion piece by Faye Flam. It's an opinion piece, okay? Now, they published it, so they must, it's like editorial. They let her go. But it's very thoughtful, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. She mentions a Bangladesh study with a small but a statistically significant benefit. People who consistently used masks, 7.6% got symptomatic infections compared to 8.6% in the control group. So the control group, I don't know what the control group was, like haphazard mask use, like most of us, because, I did it for a year. Let's not talk about the quality of the mask, but, even unless they were going to mandate me shaving off my beautiful beard, which I probably was unlikely to do. You just can't get a good mask fit on here. Plus the question of the permeability of masks. You have to be able to breathe, and viruses are very, very tiny. So a lot of good stuff in here. I recommend you read it. But I have a lot of wild news sources. The SNL skit has a lot in there about vaccinations and questioning whether they were effective, and so I just scanned the news on this, and this was from the Rio Times. Never heard of the Rio Times, but one of the things you'll note about this show, I think, is that we have wider news sources than probably anybody else you'll ever listen to. I have a lot of diversity of opinion here. Whether it's correct or not, whether it's misinformation or not, I can't tell you. But, at least they mention stuff. So they summarize a report from Denmark where Denmark said 56% double vaccinated are getting 65% of other variants and 79% of Omicron, which is something to think about. It also mentions that in where was it? They mentioned several countries, and what they're basically saying is that the vaccinated are more vulnerable to new variants than the unvaccinated. Now, I did a show probably March of 2020, 2 years ago, where a study was uncovered that showed that military personnel on a base, the ones that had received the flu shot, were actually more vulnerable than the ones who hadn't to COVID-19. And so, one of the challenges here is is that vaccines are, even the most benign, like, the smallpox vaccine took cowpox because milkmaids got cowpox milking the cows and didn't get smallpox. And a doctor observed that. So he started inoculating people with cowpox. It's close enough to smallpox, but without the hugely deadly symptoms. And what he found was that worked. And that was kind of the beginning of vaccination. This is historical information. Don't take it as medical advice. But anyway, even in those cases where it's the most benign, and later they learned to use like dead versions of a bacteria or something, which would also trick the immune system. But we're trying to trick your immune system. Now, when you try modifying the immune system, then you run the risk of either over-tuning it to a particular disease and being more vulnerable to variants, or having it over enabling it to where it starts attacking yourself. One of the big issues in COVID was that it could cause inflammation in other areas of the body, most importantly the lungs, but also in the vascular system. So you get myocarditis. See, I'm not a medical guy. Increases and other things. So it's a tricky game you're playing. But to assume that it's benign is never the case when you're shooting something into your body. And so some recommended increased vitamin D, which seemed to have a factor, and other things that were, other populations like the cowpox, the milkmaids, populations were found that weren't getting COVID, and they were taking other things that were not related, seemingly unrelated to COVID. And so I believe that's how they found the HCQ, was because people were taking that for lupus, and that population had lower COVID. And so there were alternatives, but in our culture we banned those suggestions. And so Bloomberg is now saying maybe we should be looking at them, and I have always agreed with that. And that's the importance of direct marketing. In direct marketing, we do testing so that we can hear from the marketplace. And so, it's really interesting because if you go over to scientificadvertising.com, you can get the book written in 1922, I think, or published in 1922. And in there, Claude Hopkins says that we don't have to wonder what the theories of boosted results in advertising are. The direct mail industry's been uncovering these for 50 years. That's in scientificadvertising.com. The book is there, downloadable for free by Claude Hopkins. Excellent book. You can also, for $10, you can get the audiobook, which I did. And so these things are well proven. The stuff that Summer Gould talks about is not her own ideas or opinions about effective advertising. These are principles that have been proven for 100 years, okay? 150 years. And as I explained the other day, in order to go from the past, all data is past, all data is historical, to the future, in order to make that move, the way science does it is they test and test and test and test and test with variations, and they have first a hypothesis that they're testing, then they get data, then they reframe, make more observations, test some more hypothesis, more data, and eventually from that emerges a theory of causation. If you do this, then this will happen. Unless you get to that point, you're just whistling in a windstorm and you have no idea what's going to happen next, right? It's the theory that gives you the ability to go from the past to the future. And so that's what Summer isn't giving you all this background, but that's the essence of what's going on. So, use color envelopes, make them stand out. This is not only to get noticed. This is 5 ways to get your direct mail noticed. But really, it's about how to get the envelope open. Remember yesterday when we were talking about irresistible mail, there was little or nothing on the envelopes that made you want to open it to find out that there's a video or there's an audio in there. Excuse me. It's Cheese Fair week for us Eastern Orthodox Christians, and that means we get to eat a lot of cheese, which gives me heartburn. And so then I get the acid reflux stuff, and it makes me cough. Again, more medical advice. That's what my doctor said anyway. Yes, I go to doctors. So color is inviting. It stands out. There are many colors available that do not drastically increase costs, can be very inexpensive. On the other hand, testing a pink versus a blue response envelope is not the first thing you do if somebody who knows something is looking at your mailing piece. Probably not. Okay? Use stamps. There's machines that can affix stamps. It makes it look like it's more personal because nobody does it. Okay? Am I telling you to do it? No. I'm always telling you to test it. Okay? But where you want to get a professional like Summer or myself involved, or Mike Gunderson, or whatever, you want to get a professional involved because the best tests are somewhere in between the trivial. The color of the envelope might be trivial in comparison to other mistakes you should be testing first, or the idiotic. You don't want to test the idiotic, like is there a response device? Oh, and Gunderson got back to me. Way to go, Mike. And I asked him if you remember I made the point yesterday that if it raised $52,000, how much did it cost to do it? Because the average advertising millennial person, I've had some firsthand experiences where they'd say, well, if we raised $52,000 and we spent $52,000, that would be break even. Yeah, except for my time, and if you were actually selling anything in nonprofit, it might, or in fundraising, it might. I wonder if they got a nonprofit rate. Anyway, Mike said the cost of the piece, and maybe he put in something for his creative time and all that, but the cost of the piece, I'm just going to take him at his word, was about $17,000, and so that was about a 5-time or a 4-time return on investment, 400% ROI. Okay, I'm not looking at his books, I'm not his accountant, so I don't know how carefully that was done, but that's the kind of answer I wanted to hear. Way to go, Mike. Excellent. And part of that's because he probably used, digital printing technology, even if it was color copiers. He did the mail because he only mailed out 350 pieces. And one of the advantages of three-dimensional, I think last year he had a jump rope in there. One of the advantages is you can buy a bunch of jump ropes. There's no variable cost. If anything, it might get lower if you can figure out where to buy, 350 of them. But it's not like setting up a rotogravure press where the setup is tens of thousands of dollars. If you wanted to print one piece, it would be, let's say, $10,000. But if you want to print 10 million amortized across 10 million pieces, it's the most cost-effective way to put ink on paper, pretty much. Anyway, use stamps, use larger pieces. I got this mailing the other day. Let's see if I can do this without spilling my coffee. Probably not. I got this mailing piece the other day, and it's a little deceptive because let's switch over, and I always forget to switch back. But here's the mailing piece. It says, Master Fertilizer is offering high-quality lawn care at a low price. Straightforward offer. Might want to have some kind of coupon or something to trigger for a limited time, 20% off if you book before the grass starts growing, or something like that. Would have been better. And then it says Heartland, Wisconsin. Now, I live in Heartland, Wisconsin. So, what they're doing is they're basically, they're personalizing it by geography. And either this is a franchise that somebody in Heartland bought into, or it's, somebody in Chicago that just customizes these for each little town all around major Chicago area. Then it's extremely ugly on the backside. I don't know if you can see it. Extreme ugliness on the backside. And I can't even see that it's highly customized. So I don't know why they had to go so ugly. There's almost no visual hierarchy. I like that it's huge type so that I could read this without glasses. That's especially important as as America ages. Okay, no call to action to speak of, except no QR code, no nothing, except a phone number down at the bottom that doesn't really look like a Heartland phone number, but could be because they're all mixed up now. Okay, so this is an oversized piece, just like that. It came at home, it came bent in half because my mailbox is smaller at home. But that's a good example. Okay, larger pieces, you can take advantage of that. I think that's even bigger. That looks like 8.5 by 11 or something like that. 8 by 10. That wouldn't fit into here. You could go 6 by 10. But they could have done this to qualify for a postcard rate. They didn't. So some mistakes there. And this is typical. Okay? Use taglines, fun taglines to get your envelopes opened. Use targeting, obviously targeting. Phishing lures, make sure you're targeting people who use lures. And that is difficult. That is difficult. Okay, it's not difficult in a Cabela's where we could do the phishing. Everybody that bought phishing, when we got their original data, got a check mark. The problem was that if you bought one phishing lure ever, so you bought $5 worth of phishing and you bought $500 or $5,000 worth of hunting stuff, you still got all the phishing stuff. So it was too binary. And we also found out that something between 5 and 10% of the people that had their X's checked or didn't were wrong. They had bought phishing and they weren't checked, or they hadn't bought phishing and they were checked. So always have somebody check your data because it's most likely wrong. And we can usually find tens of thousands of people that shouldn't be mailed that are being mailed repeatedly and pay for our services. Okay, summer, to change only one thing at a time was the way I learned testing, so I understand it. But with modern machine learning, we can throw 300 variables, kind of like that example of populations. What they do is they model populations. They say who's getting COVID, or better yet, who isn't getting COVID. It's always easier to model the nons than the no's than the yeses, it happens to be. Who is unlikely to buy? The people who've never bought fishing in your Cabela's catalog. Are the fishermen, you can say, well, let's go after the fishermen because they're more likely to buy. Yeah, well, the fishermen buy and they don't buy on their own schedule. But the people who've never bought fishing, let's not mail them. You see how that's a much cleaner segmentation. Again, nuances. But the way they found HCQ, I believe, was because lupus patients were taking it regularly. Or there was some drug that lupus patients were taking regularly and weren't getting COVID. And so they found the no's. They're not getting COVID. What's unique about them? And they ran through that population. They found out, well, many are taking this hydrochloroquine as a treatment for lupus. So maybe that's why, maybe there's some connection. Again, this was an effort to let the marketplace, let the real world tell us the answer. And then to say, well, we have no theory of medicine that explains why HCQ, which is an anti-malaria drug, has any effect for COVID. True. You have no theory for that. It doesn't make it false. See? Interesting stuff. So thank you, Ellen, for sending me this. Summer, we can test 300 variables at once. Believe it or not. But then you want to keep the creative pretty similar. We can also have one variation maybe on the creative. But that would, you have to have a couple of 100,000 in the mail at basically the same time. Have a great day. Like and share. Give me a call. Join the WDMA. Oops. I never did go back to showing you the underlined stuff. Here it is. Go over to WDMA, subscribe, and you can get this all the marked up stuff and the Bloomberg article and the what was that? Rio Times from Rio de Janeiro. So there you go. Have a great day.